The airlock hissed open, bleeding heat into the void as firelight flickered beyond the threshold. Lieutenant Commander Rourke Hale stepped through first, his boots landing on scorched alloy. His visor dimmed automatically against the pulsing orange glow of ruptured conduits. Smoke curled like claws along the curved walls of the alien vessel, its interior groaning under stress as if the ship itself were trying to breathe through crushed lungs. Timers ticking. "Commander, Sergeant." Klein's voice crackled through the comm. "Copy," Rourke replied, his tone clipped but calm. "We're in." Moving toward the core. They advanced down a corridor that twisted unnaturally, every surface curved and glistening like the bones of some sleeping beast. This wasn't human architecture. The Tsari didn't build with angles. Everything flowed organic, deliberate, beautiful in a way that made it feel alive. Rourke hated how much he still admired their design. Even after 3 years of war, they passed 3 bodies Tsari warriors, their iridescent skins scorched black and peeling. Rourke didn't flinch, but he cataloged each one young, probably. Conscripts. The war didn't discriminate. Everyone bled. The data core chamber was sealed by a locking mechanism unlike anything human engineers could decipher quickly. Specialist Zhang dropped to one knee, her fingers already dancing over the alien symbols. "Give me 90 seconds, she said. Rourke nodded. "You've got 60. Then he heard it faint, muffled, cutting through the crackle of flames and distant hissing of breached vents. A sound no war zone should hold. A child's cry. He turned slightly, pausing. The others didn't notice. Then it came again, clearer this time. High-pitched, fragile. A single sob, echoing through a ruptured junction in the wall. Rourke pivoted. "Sergeant, hold position." "Sir?" Klein's head snapped up. "There's a secondary corridor. I'm checking it. You can't be serious. We're minutes from full structural collapse. Continue the extraction. That's an order." He didn't wait for approval. His boots pounded down the offshoot corridor, his rifle lowered but ready. The emergency lighting failed halfway through, plunging him into darkness broken only by his helmet lamp. The screaming stopped. For a moment, he feared he'd imagined it, just another ghost in this place. But then he heard breathing, rapid, shallow. He ducked under a collapsed support strut and emerged into a ruined chamber living quarters by the look of it. A shattered bunk lay in pieces, and alien paintings fluttered on the soot-stained walls. Beneath a collapsed beam, something moved. Tiny fingers. Pale lavender skin smeared with blood and ash. Rourke dropped his weapon and rushed forward. The child looked up at him with eyes the color of distant moons wide, terrified and filled with tears. She couldn't have been more than 6. Her leg was pinned, and every breath came out as a tremor. "It's okay," Rourke said softly, though she wouldn't understand. "I've got you." He wedged himself under the beam, using the exomuscles of his suit to lift. Metal groaned, his suit strained. But the beam shifted just enough. The girl cried out as he pulled her free, clutching him instinctively. She didn't weigh more than a field pack. Behind them, something snapped. Rourke turned just in time to see the bulkhead fracture. Atmosphere rushed out in a deafening roar. Fire chased oxygen, racing toward them. His helmet sealed. He hit the floor, curled around the girl, and activated emergency anchoring. The force of the explosion slammed into them like a tidal wave. Shrapnel whistled through the air. The child whimpered, clinging to his chest. His oxygen supply blinked red. His visor cracked down one side. He tightened his hold. "You're safe," he murmured through gritted teeth. Her voice was a whisper, nearly lost beneath the dying wind. Fess. Ira. He didn't know what it meant. But something in it made his chest tighten. As the fire died and silence returned to the ruined chamber, Rourke realized he was still alive, and he was no longer just a soldier. He was hers now. The child hadn't spoken again, not since those final whispered words in the collapsing chamber. Rourke sat at the edge of the medbay, still in half armor, his forearms resting on his knees. Blood hers and his had dried on his suit's chest. Plate. It flaked off now in silent reminders with every breath he took. On the other side of the transparent barrier, the alien girl lay on a diagnostic table, surrounded by humming medical equipment and soft violet lighting, designed to accommodate non-human physiology. The lights in the human sections of the horizons edge were always a little too cold. Dr. Alara Chun adjusted a control panel beside the girl's head, her gloved hands steady, her eyes unreadable. Physically she live, she said to no one in particular. A few fractures, mild respiratory trauma. But she hasn't responded to any of the translators. She talked to me, Rourke said quietly, not looking away. She's not talking now. I know. A long silence stretched between them. Somewhere behind the sterile hum of the machines, a muffled alarm echoed 3 times standard code for incoming fleet orders. Another mission loomed. Another warfront igniting. Elara finally turned to him. You saved her life, Rourke. But the rest of this ship doesn't see her as a miracle. They see her as leverage or a threat. I don't care what they see, he muttered. You should. She stepped closer, her tone softening. Command knows who she is. Rourke finally looked up. What do you mean? She's not. Just some random child. Our intelligence drones scanned her DNA against Hisari command protocols. That girl, Soraya They, is the daughter of Commander Valerian They. Rourke went still. There was a ghost story among human troops. A legend in violet skin and black armor who led Sari incursions with ruthless precision. Ships she hunted rarely returned. Rumor said she never spoke during battle, only transmitted her targets' names in Sari script. Cold and final. And Rourke had rescued her daughter. His stomach twisted. She doesn't know that yet? No, but she will. We've locked down all outgoing signals. It's only a matter of time before they find out. Let me talk to her, Rourke said. Ilara gave him a skeptical glance. Protocol says isolation. Quarantine. I don't care. She spoke to me. She recognized me. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe that means something to her. Or maybe she imprinted on you because you were the first warm body after a trauma event. Either way, Rourke said, standing, I'm the only one she'll listen to. After a long pause, Alara exhaled. Fine, 10 minutes. I'll log it as psychological observation and buy you some space with the brass. Inside the sealed medbay chamber, the lights dimmed automatically as the door hissed shut behind him. The scent in the air changed, slightly less sterile, more humid. Sari biology preferred moisture. She was curled in the far corner, away from the medical table now, her back against the wall, tiny arms wrapped around her knees. Rourke approached slowly and removed his helmet. I'm not here to hurt you, he said softly. You remember me, don't you? She blinked. Slowly. Her eyes reflected more light than human eyes, a trick of evolution. They were alien, but somehow still devastatingly childlike. He crouched to her level. Soraya, that's your name, isn't it? Her eyes widened. The name meant something to her. Recognition, yes, but also fear. She's going to come for you, isn't she? He said, more to himself than her. Your mother. The girl nodded once, then lifted one delicate hand and touched his breastplate. Fes Ira, she whispered again. I am yours. Before he could respond, the comlink in his suit activated. Lieutenant Commander Hale, report to Fleet Command Center immediately, said Captain Mara Dellen's voice, sharp and clipped. We have an incoming Sari signal. High priority. Encryption. It's marked personal. Rourke stood slowly, a terrible certainty blooming in his chest. She knows. Commander Valerian they knew her daughter was alive, and she was coming. The war room aboard Horizon's Edge was usually cold, sterile, and humming with the humdrum tension of tactical briefings and long-range sensor updates. But now it pulsed with something heavier, an invisible charge that crawled under the skin. Of every officer present, Lieutenant Commander Rourke Hale stood rigidly at the edge of the holotable, his jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the shimmering blue hologram hovering above the platform. It showed the seal of the Tisari High Fleet, rotating slowly like a floating dagger made of light. It pulsed once more, requesting connection. Captain Mara Dellen's voice cut the silence like a whip. "Play the transmission." The seal vanished. In its place appeared the image of Commander Valerian they. She wasn't armored, but she didn't need to be. The Tsari commander stood tall and straight, draped in a fluid violet robe stitched with ceremonial symbols. Her skin shimmered with a faint bioluminescence, and her dark eyes locked immediately onto the camera, onto Rourke. She did not blink, too. "The humans aboard Horizon's Edge, I am Valerian they, War Mother of the Tsari Second Banner and bloodkin of Soraya they, child of the Core Line." Her voice was low and resonant, like a storm speaking with dignity. She spoke perfect standard, but the way she enunciated words made them sound like sacred chants. "I offer no threat, no weapon, no fleet," she continued, "only a single demand." The officers in the room shifted uncomfortably. A demand from her. "You have my daughter, alive?" Rourke felt every eye in the room turn to him. "I do not thank you," Valerian said coldly. "Not yet. Not until I understand. Number. Tsari child should be alive on a human warship. No Tsari child should need saving. Yet Soraya is alive because one of you broke rank, disobeyed orders, and took her into his arms while my ship died around her." The silence in the war room thickened. "I demand to speak with him," she said. "I demand to see the man who carried my daughter through fire. I will not speak to your admirals or ambassadors. I will not negotiate with bureaucrats. I will only speak to the one called Hale." Then her eyes softened barely, but enough for everyone to see. "Bring him, or I bring the war back to your doorstep." The transmission ended. No threats. Number. Fleet movements. Just certainty. Captain Dellen paced in slow, deliberate steps, tension bleeding from her every motion. This could be a trap, a deep game to bait you. She could mind-link to you and extract everything. Tactical plans, starport locations, alliance weaknesses. "I know," Rourke said simply. "You're not seriously entertaining this?" "She doesn't want a hostage," he replied, eyes unfocused. "She wants answers. So do I. She's the most dangerous commander in their fleet. She's also a mother." That made Dellen pause. "She'll want a neutral site," the captain said. "The Solarian Concord has a diplomatic station in orbit around Eltaris Prime. No weapons. No combat. She agree." Rourke didn't respond. He was thinking about the little girl sleeping in the med bay, about the way she clung to him, about the words she kept whispering with impossible trust. Fess Ira, he wasn't just stepping into a political meeting. He was stepping into the center of a mother's grief, a soldier's anger, and a child's. Bond, and he had no idea what waited on the other side. The shuttle cut across the glowing atmosphere of Eltaris Prime, its hull reflecting the golden shimmer of the twin suns. Below, the Concorde's diplomatic station floated like a cathedral built for gods who'd forgotten peace. Rourke wore no armor. Just his standard Navy uniform, cleaned and pressed, medals removed by his request. This wasn't about war. Not anymore. He walked alone into the station's central hall, a place of towering crystal columns and mirrored floors. Sari honor guards stood along the perimeter, unarmed but intimidating in their precision. Their eyes followed his every step, and at The end of the chamber stood Valerian Thae. In person, she was smaller than he expected, but no less imposing. Every movement of hers was deliberate, measured, like a blade that knew when to stay sheathed. Her eyes dark, endless, met his. She studied him for a long time without speaking. Then, softly, "You don't look like a savior." "I didn't do it to be one." "No, that's why you are." She circled him slowly, taking him in from every angle. "Not predatory - curious - double quotes. Do you know what Saraya means when she says Thessaira?" He shook his head. "She says it to the person she gives herself to completely. Her safety, her trust, her bond." "We do not say those words lightly, Commander Hale. I didn't teach them to her." "No," Valerian said. "She remembered them. She remembered them for you." He finally turned to her, firm. "You want answers?" "So do I." I saw a scared child. I acted. That's all. Is it?" she asked. Rourke opened his mouth, but she stepped closer. "I have never let a human stand this close to me without dying. But you held my blood in your arms. You gave her what even my own people could not. Safety, peace. I need to know if that came from pity or something deeper." The lights above shifted as a holographic field activated, bathing the hall in soft blue. A privacy veil. Valerian's voice dropped. "There is a right, ancient, binding. You saved her life. If I invoked the old laws, you would be, by our tradition, blood-bound to my house. Kin, family. You would be hers. And mine." Rourke stared at her. "I didn't save her for politics," he said. "And I didn't save her to join anyone's bloodline." "Then why?" He didn't answer immediately. "Because he didn't know how. Until now. Because when I saw her lying there, under that wreckage, I didn't see an alien. I saw my own little sister, dying all over again. And I couldn't let that happen again." Valerian blinked once, visibly shaken. "You carry ghosts." "So do you." They stood in silence, two warriors shaped by war, bound by a child who shouldn't have survived. Finally, Valerian stepped back, her face unreadable. "Then perhaps we begin not with politics, but with truth. The Tsari vessel wasn't like any warship Rourke had ever seen. It breathed, not literally, of course, but everything about it pulsed with a low, ambient rhythm. The corridors curved and shimmered with veins of light that responded to movement. Walls swelled and contracted as if alive. The air was warmer, denser, faintly sweet with floral oxygen compounds. Every surface gave the impression it had grown rather than been built. This was not just a warship. It was a living memory of an ancient culture. And for the first time in years, Rourke Hale didn't feel like a soldier walking into battle. He felt like a trespasser in a temple. Commander Valerian Thae led him in silence through the main transit hall. Her long violet robes whispered against the floor, and her presence carved a path through the crew like the crest of a wave. "Sorry." Warriors stepped aside with subtle reverence, but their eyes never left Rourke. No words were spoken, but the message was clear. He was not welcome. He was merely tolerated, because she allowed it. Valerian gestured him into a chamber with a sweeping dome above. Its ceiling glowed with constellations, not projections, but actual points of bioluminescent light woven into the structure like threads in a tapestry. "This is my sanctuary," she said, voice low. "Few enter here, even fewer without a weapon drawn." "Honor's mine," Rourke replied, meaning it. They sat across from each other at a low, rippling table that adjusted to their height as they approached. The alien architecture responded to Valerian like a trusted servant. It did not trust Rourke yet. He sat stiffly, unsure of the customs. Valerian tilted her head. "You're uncomfortable." "I'm sitting in a breathing ship beside the most dangerous woman in 2 quadrants." "Uncomfortable" feels like an understatement. Her lips curled faintly. Not quite a smile. You fear me. I fear what this could become. You fear yourself, then? He didn't reply. She stood and walked to a nearby alcove where thin strands of glowing thread hung like curtains. From the shimmering strands, she drew an instrument something between a harp and a flute, its frame pulsing gently with her touch. She began to play. The music was unlike anything Rourke had ever heard, melancholic and alien, each note like a raindrop falling backward. It didn't just echo in his ears, it vibrated in his spine, stirring something ancient in him. He closed his eyes without meaning to. When the song ended, he looked at her, and for the first time, saw her not as a commander, not as an alien, but as a woman weighed down by grief. You lost her father, didn't you? He asked quietly. Yes, she replied, turning away. Before Soraya could walk. He died during the siege of Vern's Reach. Your people called it a tactical strike. We called it a massacre. Rourke flinched. I'm sorry. She turned back sharply. Are you? Or is that simply what your kind says when they don't know how to confront guilt? Rourke stood, angry now. I didn't order that strike. I wasn't even there. But I've buried men I called brothers. I've pulled kids out of airlocks. What do you think I am, Valerian? Some mindless cog in your enemy's machine? Silence. Heavy. Sharp. Then softly she said, No, you're the man who gave my daughter peace when all else around her screamed. He exhaled slowly. I don't know why she trusts me, but I know I won't let her down. Valerian approached. Him, close, too close. He could see the faint glow beneath her skin, traces of energy pulsing just below the surface. Her eyes weren't cold now. They shimmered with some unspoken pull. There is a ritual among my people, she said. When someone becomes bound to a child not of their blood but of their spirit. I've heard of it, Rourke said. Kaithalan? No, she corrected gently. Kaitharan, deeper, stronger. It is not just a vow of guardianship, it is a resonance of fate, and you want me to take it? She hesitated. Soraya already has. That stopped him. Valerian reached forward and placed a hand gently over his chest. She speaks your name in her dreams. She draws your face in her sleep with her fingers in the air. Do you not feel the link already? Rourke's breath caught. He did. A pulse, a connection. Like a thread tugging gently at his center. Ever since he pulled that child from fire. I don't know what I'm doing, he whispered. Neither do I. Valerian replied. A soft chime interrupted them. Valerian stepped back, instantly cold again. What is it? Asari officers. Voice came over the comm. Commander, we've intercepted a low-band transmission. Encrypted, human origin. It was sent from Horizon's edge. Valerian's eyes narrowed. Replay it. The audio filled the chamber in clipped, hushed tones. Target. Identified. Hale's location confirmed. We move at the summit. Rourke's blood went cold. Someone on his own ship had just marked him for death. Valerian turned to him slowly, eyes full of fire. They mean to kill you. Rourke clenched his fists. Then I guess I've finally become too dangerous for both sides. Valerian nodded once. We protect our own. And whether you've accepted the right or not. She stepped closer, eyes locking into his with terrifying clarity. You're one of us now. The stars look different from here. Rourke stood at the edge of the observation ring aboard Valerian's flagship, the Auranthalis. The stars were the same brilliant white flecks etched across the endless black, but something about this view felt alien. The glass seemed thinner, the silence deeper, as if the universe were waiting for something to break it. He leaned against the rail, hands still throbbing from where the resonance threads had bound around his wrist during Soraya's brief mind link. The night before, she had touched his skin while he helped her with the Tsari language glyphs. Just a moment, just a flash. But it had burned like lightning across his soul. She had seen something in him. So had her mother. Valerian's presence announced itself like a change in air pressure. He didn't turn. He knew it was her. "You haven't slept," she said. "I haven't been welcome." "You are always welcome here," she said softly, "even if you're too stubborn to believe it." He turned then. She wore a layered ceremonial tunic, more regal than militant, made of interwoven crystal threads that shimmered with each breath. She looked every bit the commander, but not the killer he'd once imagined her to be. Rourke didn't respond right away. "I listened to the intercepted message again," he finally said. "There's no question. It came from my side. Someone high up. They don't just want to stop the summit. They want me dead before I ever reach it." Valerian nodded. "Your people are afraid. Of peace?" "No," she said. "Of what peace might cost them." That stung. Because it felt true, he stepped away from the glass, facing her. "They think I've gone native, that I've forgotten who I am." "And have you?" He didn't answer. Valerian approached, her voice lowering. "What if I could give you a way out of this? A path that protects the child, shields both our peoples from war, and frees you from this impossible line you walk. What path?" She held out her hand open, bare, a bond. Rourke stared at it. "You're serious?" "The right of Kytherin can be enacted fully," she said. "It would not just link you to Soraya as guardian. It would bind you to me as equal, in name, in blood, in will." His breath caught. "That sounds like marriage." "In your terms, yes, but not for love alone, for unity, for protection. And for politics?" She smiled faintly. "Politics is just the language of war turned sideways. But yes, if we are bonded under Tsari law, your death would become an act of war. No one human or Tsari would dare harm you without consequence." Rourke backed away slightly. "That's not why I saved her." "I know," she said, stepping closer. "That's why you matter." He stared at her hand. His pulse pounded. Every instinct screamed at him this was madness. He was a soldier of Earth's fleet. She was a commander of the enemy. But those lines, they were blurring now. And somewhere in his mind, he heard Soraya's voice again. "Thesai-Ra." He looked up. "If I do this," he said slowly, "it won't be because of politics. It won't be for protection. It'll be because I believe this is bigger than us, bigger than this war." Valerian's eyes shimmered. "Then you're ready." But before their hands could meet, the chamber door hissed open. A young Tsari officer entered, eyes wide, breathing hard. "Forgive the interruption, Commander, but we've just received word. The human fleet, they've moved early." Rourke turned, all warmth evaporating from his face. "What?" "The summit's been pushed forward. Admiral Kane is heading to the station now with a secondary fleet positioned in high orbit." Valerian's expression sharpened. "They've planned for contingencies." "No," Rourke said, voice hard. "They've planned for a massacre." He looked to Valerian. "They're not just trying to kill me anymore. They want to end this alliance before it begins." Her jaw tensed. "Then we must be the ones to write the first page of peace. Not with signatures, but with action." Rourke stepped toward her. "Then it's now or never." She extended her hand again, this time with resolve. "No more hesitation," she said. "Do you accept the right? Do you bind yourself to us, to Soraya, to me no matter what comes?" He didn't hesitate this time. He took her hand. Their palms met. A spark of light arced between them, literal energy, not metaphor. The ship itself responded. Threads of resonance wrapped around their hands, weaving their biometrics, their intent, their futures. Rourke gritted his teeth as something ancient passed through him. A voice not his own whispered in his blood. The bond had begun. As the light faded, Valerian looked up at him not as a commander, but but as something far more terrifying. Someone who had opened her soul. "We are one now," she said. "They cannot divide us again." But somewhere, far away, on the human side of the fleet, someone else watched the ritual through a hidden channel. A spy embedded deep within Sari systems. He smiled coldly, already transmitting data. "They've just signed their death warrants," he muttered, because the assassination wasn't canceled, it was accelerating. The diplomatic station orbiting Eltaris Prime was built for beauty, not for war. Its grand hall stretched like the inside of a cathedral, lined with transparent solar glass and lit by the shimmer of the twin suns beyond. Tall banners from both civilizations, human and Sari, hung side by side. It was a chamber that had seen dignitaries, scientists, and visionaries. Today, it was about to witness history. Or bloodshed. Lieutenant Commander Rourke Hale stood straight at the far end of the platform, now fully dressed in ceremonial navy blue with the silver insignia of the Earth Coalition at his collar. But alongside, it resting just over his heart, was a curved violet emblem, the sigil of House Thay, embroidered with light thread, a mark of his newly bonded status. Across the room, Valerian stood cloaked in Sari white, her braid coiled like a crown. Behind her stood Soraya, flanked by ceremonial guardians and holding tightly to a woven glyph scroll she had drawn herself. On it, 3 figures, one tall, one shorter, one small, joined together by a single line running through their hands, the symbol of peace. And family. All around them, diplomats, commanders, and representatives filled the gallery. Cameras floated overhead, streaming the event live to billions. The treaty sat on a floating dais between the 2 delegations, waiting for signatures. And above them, high in the observation loft behind mirrored glass, a human officer named Colonel Dorian Mursk adjusted the sight of his rifle. Visual locked. He whispered into his hidden comm. "Target, Hale, preparing for clean execution, firing on mark." He didn't hesitate. He didn't feel guilt. He only felt victory. The red dot appeared, just beneath Rourke's collar. He saw it a second before. The shot fired. He didn't have time to react, but Valerian did. Without thinking, without strategy, she moved. Her body collided with his heartbeat before the shot rang out. The sound of the slug echoed like thunder. Valerian gasped. Blood sprayed across the floor. She collapsed into Rourke's arms. For a moment, there was no sound. No breath. No understanding. Then Soraya screamed, "Sniper!" Someone shouted. Chaos erupted. Sari guards surrounded Valerian's body instantly, shields up. Human security drew weapons and shouted commands. The station descended into near riot as systems scrambled to lock down exits and filter guests. From threats, Rourke pressed his hands against Valerian's shoulder, where crimson blood poured through her robes. Her eyes fluttered, her breath ragged. "You idiot," she rasped. "I'm the idiot?" he said, his voice cracking. "You took a bullet meant for me." "Because you're my—" She coughed violently, blood on her lips. "You're mine." The bond pulsed between them, real, warm, electric. It shimmered faintly around his hand as he held her. "She needs a medic," he shouted, fury sharpening his voice. "Get her help." Dr. Alara Chun pushed through the crowd seconds later, followed by a mixed team of Sari and human medics. They worked fast biogel sprays, vascular stabilizers, internal sealants. Rourke didn't move. Soraya clung to his leg, sobbing into his uniform. "They were going to kill you," Valerian whispered as the medics lifted her onto a mobile stretcher. "I wouldn't allow it." "You should have let me take the shot," he said, trying not to break. "You think I survived this war to lose you now?" She passed out before he could answer. Hours passed. The station remained locked down. The shooter, Colonel Mursk was captured by Tsari security while trying to escape through a disguised maintenance corridor. They didn't kill him. They didn't need to. His silence only lasted until Rourke stormed into his holding cell and slammed his fist into the table. "You were supposed to be one of us," Rourke growled. "I am one of us," Mursk spat, blood trailing from his mouth. "You're the traitor. You nearly started another war." "Good. At least in war we know who the enemy is." Rourke leaned in. "The enemy, Colonel, is the man who aims a rifle at peace." Mursk smiled through broken teeth. "They'll never accept you. You're not one of them. And now, you're no longer one of us." Rourke stood silently, then turned his back and walked out. The medical bay was quiet. Rourke entered softly, the lights dimmed to accommodate Tsari biochemistry. Valerian lay in a suspension field, wrapped in healing filaments, her shoulder still bandaged. She looked asleep, but not weak. Saria sat beside her mother's bed, head resting on the mattress, her small fingers twined with Valerian's. Rourke stepped forward and gently touched the girl's shoulder. "She's going to be okay," he said. The child looked up at him with tear-stained eyes. "Promise?" "I swear it," he said. Velari unstirred, her eyes blinking open. Rourke rushed to her side, gripping her uninjured hand. "You're awake." "I'd better be," she rasped. "There's still a treaty to sign. You're not moving until you're fully healed." "You can't protect both of us," she said softly. "Not forever." He touched his forehead to hers. "Then teach me how." The peace summit was rescheduled for 3 days later, and this time, when Rourke and Valerian stood together at the dais, they didn't do it as representatives of their species. They did it as family. The treaty was signed. The image of a human soldier standing beside an alien commander, hand in hand with her child, broadcast to every known system. A message that said, "War ends here. Love begins now." 6 months later, the war was a memory. But memories don't die quietly. They echo, especially in the stars. The Morrison Accord, signed under threat of bloodshed and betrayal, had held longer than any treaty in interstellar history. Human and Tsari forces had not just laid down weapons, they had begun sharing them. Technology, knowledge, language, culture. For the first time in generations, fleets met not in battle, but in orbit, exchanging scientists, diplomats, and students. And at the heart of it all stood the one man neither side had expected, Lieutenant Commander Rourke Hale. No longer just a soldier. No longer just human. He stood at the edge of the newly christened Unity Station, suspended between both worlds, watching a transport ship dock from the distant planet Vaul, Tsari colony once marked for extinction during the early years of the war. Now human engineers were helping them rebuild it. Children were learning both languages. Marriages had already been registered under the dual banners of Earth and they, and Rourke. He was not just a symbol of that future, he had become its anchor. Behind him, soft footsteps approached, still hiding in the starlight. Valerian's voice was softer now, no longer the steel-edged command he'd once heard in diplomatic chambers. "The Council's waiting. I wasn't hiding," Rourke said, turning to her. "Just thinking." She smiled, still wearing her officer's tunic, but now embroidered with a silver crescent on her shoulder, the symbol of a peace-burn house. One formed not through bloodlines, but through choice. "Thinking about what?" she asked. He looked out the window again. "What it means? To be both. Both human and Tsari. Both protector and destroyer. Both soldier and father." Valerian stepped beside him, their hands brushing slightly. "She calls you." "Rive now," she said. "Do you know what that means?" He shook his head. "Guardian flame." He swallowed hard. "She gave me a name?" "She gave you a place," Valerian corrected. "In her life, in our world. Does that place include you? He asked, not as a soldier, but as the man who had bled for her. Her fingers slid into his, lacing together. It always did. The door behind them slid open. Soraya ran in, no longer limping, no longer frightened. Her eyes glowed with curiosity, and her voice echoed across the chamber. "Brother," she called out joyfully. "Come. See, they made the garden float. It's in space. There are earth flowers and sorry ones, and they're dancing." Rourke knelt as she flew into his arms, laughing. She smelled like sunleaf pollen and old starship grease. The perfect mix of both worlds. As she pulled him toward the observation deck, Valerian paused and turned toward a figure waiting in the shadows. A man in dark civilian robes with a datapad in hand. "You're late," she said coolly. The man stepped into the light. Elder Kether, an exiled Sari scholar, once branded a traitor for advocating peace. Now reinstated. Now her advisor. "Not here for ceremony," he said. "I came with a warning." Valerian's expression hardened. "From whom?" "From within." There are whispers again. "Not from Earth, from our own outer ring. A faction that sees Rourke not as a bridge, but as a threat to purity." She sighed. "It never ends." "No, but peace was never meant to be easy. That's why it needs guardians." He glanced toward Rourke and Soraya, now staring at the floating garden, their laughter echoing through the chamber. "They'll come for him eventually," Kether said. "Let them," Valerian replied, her voice calm but fierce. "He doesn't. Stand alone." Later that night, Rourke sat in his quarters, now lined with artifacts from both Earth and Sari space. On his desk was a small crystal box that played Soraya's favorite lullaby. He opened his datapad and began a final log entry, the last in a journal he had started the day he pulled a little girl from fire. Log entry 238.6 months ago. "I thought I saved an enemy child, but she saved me. I thought I was protecting someone else's future, but I was forging my own. The war was supposed to break us. Instead, it gave us something worth defending. This isn't the end of the story. It's just the moment between pages. And whatever comes next, I will meet it not as a soldier, but as a father, a son. A flame that will not be extinguished. Rourke." Closed the log. Behind him. The door opened with a soft hiss. Velar Ion stepped inside and wrapped her arms around his shoulders. "We're ready," she said. He stood, took her hand, and walked toward the light of a new chapter, where war had once begun, peace had taken root. And in its soil, something extraordinary had bloomed.